It's a question that sounds like it's ripped from a movie script. Could the world's most famous missing child case be connected to its most infamous sex trafficking ring? For nearly 2 decades, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has been a heartbreaking, unsolved mystery that has captivated and horrified the world. But recently, her name shockingly appeared where no one ever expected, in discussions surrounding the newly released Jeffrey Epstein files. This has ignited a firestorm of online speculation, connecting the lost little girl to the shadowy world of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. These theories, born from unverified witness statements and social media comparisons, have forced investigators, journalists, and the public to ask a terrifying new question in a case that's been full of them for years. We'll separate verified facts from online speculation.
To understand why this online rumor is so explosive, we have to go back to the very beginning. We have to return to the evening of May 3rd, 2007. We're in Praia de Luz, a sun-drenched resort town on Portugal's Algarve coast, a popular destination for British families looking for a peaceful getaway. Among them were Kate and Gerry McCann, both successful doctors from England, on holiday with their 3 young children, 3-year-old Madeleine and her 2-year-old twin siblings, Sean and Amelie. The family was staying in apartment 5A of the Ocean Club Resort Complex. That evening, Kate and Gerry made a decision that would be scrutinized for years. They put their children to bed in the ground floor apartment and went to dinner with a group of friends who would later become known as the Tapas 7. The restaurant was inside the resort, but it was about 55 meters away. It was close enough, they felt, to be able to check on the children periodically. The group took turns leaving the dinner table to walk back to their apartments to make sure their sleeping children were safe. The checks happened about every 30 to 40 minutes. Gerry McCann checked on his children around 9:05 p.m. and saw them all sleeping soundly. Another friend from the group offered to check on them during his turn around 9:30 p.m., and while he saw Sean and Amelie, he didn't get a clear view of Madeleine's bed. It wasn't until around 10 p.m. when Kate McCann went for her check that the world fell out from beneath the family's feet. When she entered the children's bedroom, she was met with a scene of pure horror. The door was open, the window was open, and the shutter was raised, and Madeleine's bed was empty. The twins were still there, sleeping peacefully, but Madeleine was gone. A frantic search began immediately. The McCanns and their friends scoured the apartment complex, their calls for Madeleine echoing through the quiet resort. Staff and other guests joined in, their pleasant holiday evening turning into a nightmare. The Portuguese police, the Polícia Judiciária, were called and a formal search was launched. But as the hours turned into days, a terrifying reality began to sink in. They found no trace of her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The case instantly became a global media sensation. The face of the beautiful 3-year-old girl with her distinctive eyes was suddenly on every television screen and newspaper front page across the world. She was described as a bright, funny, and energetic child. One feature in particular was noted in every report, a rare and unique blemish in her right eye, a coloboma of the iris. It was a dark fleck on the blue-green of her iris, a 1 in a million mark that made her instantly recognizable. This tiny imperfection would become a crucial and haunting element of the story for years to come. In the frantic days that followed, it was hoped that this unique feature would help someone, somewhere, identify her and bring her home safely. Nobody could have imagined that nearly 2 decades later, it would be this exact detail that would reappear in the context of a completely different and even darker criminal saga.
In the immediate aftermath of Madeleine's disappearance, the investigation by the Polícia Judiciária seemed to move in a dozen directions at once. The first official suspect, or arguido, was a local man named Robert Murat, a British-Portuguese resident who lived near the Ocean Club Resort. His eagerness to involve himself in the search as a translator drew suspicion. Just 12 days after Madeleine vanished, his home was thoroughly searched, but police found nothing to connect him to the crime, and he was eventually cleared. As the police worked, potential sightings trickled in. One of the McCann's friends, Jane Tanner, reported seeing a man carrying a small child in pink pajamas at around 9:15 p.m. For a long time, this was considered a key sighting. However, years later, this was largely discounted when a British tourist said it was him carrying his own sleeping daughter home from the resort's nursery that night. A more credible sighting came from the Smith family, an Irish family on holiday who saw a man carrying a young girl who appeared to be sleeping at around 10 p.m. heading away from the resort. This sighting, happening right around the time Kate McCann discovered her daughter was missing, was deemed far more significant by Scotland Yard in the years that followed. But then, the investigation took a shocking turn. 4 months into the case, the focus shifted from a search for a kidnapper to a suspicion of the parents themselves. British sniffer dogs trained to detect the scent of cadavers and blood were brought to Praia da Luz. The dogs reportedly alerted inside apartment 5A and in the trunk of a car the McCanns had rented 25 days after Madeleine disappeared. This canine evidence, combined with what Portuguese investigators felt were inconsistencies, led to a new theory. DNA samples from the car were sent to a UK lab, but the results were ultimately inconclusive. Despite the weak forensic evidence, the damage was done. In September 2007, both Kate and Jerry McCann were officially named as formal suspects, or arguidos, in their daughter's disappearance. This turned the grieving parents into public pariahs in the eyes of many. This cloud of suspicion hung over them until July 2008, when the Portuguese Attorney General archived the case, citing a lack of evidence. The arguido status was lifted from the McCanns and Robert Murat, but the narrative of parental involvement was cemented in the public mind, fueled by books from the former lead detective, Gonçalo Amaral, who insisted they were involved in a cover-up. The McCanns sued him for libel, fighting a legal battle for their reputation that ran parallel to the desperate search for their daughter. For years, the case went cold. The Portuguese investigation was closed, and while the McCanns funded their own private investigators, no official progress was made. That changed in 2011 when London's Metropolitan Police launched its own review, codenamed Operation Grange. This new investigation brought fresh eyes and resources, meticulously re-examining every piece of evidence. After years of work, Operation Grange zeroed in on a new person of interest. In June 2020, German prosecutors made a stunning announcement. They had identified a prime suspect, a German national named Christian Brueckner. Unlike other leads, the case against Brueckner seemed credible. He was a convicted sex offender with a history of crimes against children. Crucially, at the time of Madeleine's disappearance, he was living a transient lifestyle in the Algarve region not far from Praia da Luz. The most damning piece of evidence was digital. Investigators found cell phone data placing a phone belonging to Brueckner in the immediate vicinity of the Ocean Club resort on the night of May 3, 2007. The phone received a call that placed him near the apartment complex in the critical window of time before Madeleine was discovered missing. This shattered his alibi that he was nowhere near the scene. German police have stated publicly that they believe Madeleine McCann is deceased and that Christian Brueckner is responsible. However, despite the circumstantial evidence, he has never been charged with any crime related to her disappearance and has consistently denied any involvement. He was recently released from prison in Germany in September 2025 after serving a sentence for an unrelated crime, the 2005 rape of a 72-year-old woman in Praia da Luz. He is not entirely free, as he remains under state supervision with an electronic ankle tag, but he is no longer incarcerated. The German investigation is ongoing, but for now, their prime suspect is out of prison, and Madeleine's parents are still without answers.
For nearly 2 decades, the search for Madeleine has explored countless theories, but no one could have predicted the names that would surface in online discussions. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The connection isn't a bombshell from investigators, but a firestorm of online speculation that grew from two things: old suspect sketches and a single unverified tip found deep within the recently released Epstein court files. The theory largely gained traction when online sleuths began comparing a 2009 EFIT sketch of a woman seen in Spain shortly after the disappearance to photos of a younger Ghislaine Maxwell. This perceived resemblance, though highly subjective, was enough to build a narrative. That narrative was supercharged when Madeleine's name was found within the thousands of pages of court documents related to the Epstein case. The document in question is a witness statement from 2009. In it, a witness describes seeing a woman who they later came to believe resembled Ghislaine Maxwell walking in Barcelona with a young girl who reminded them of Madeleine. The witness noted the girl was covering her right eye, which they connected to Madeleine's distinctive coloboma. However, this tip was submitted years after the supposed sighting and has never been verified. Authorities have clarified that this is a single, uncorroborated account and does not amount to evidence. Before anyone declares the mystery solved, it's critical to look at this information objectively. The emergence of this theory has created a frenzy online, but the official response from law enforcement has been almost entirely dismissive. Authorities in the US, UK, Portugal, and Germany have been quick to pour cold water on the speculation. They have confirmed that this witness statement is not new evidence. It is a single, uncorroborated tip that has been reviewed and has not prompted any new line of inquiry. There is no active investigation into a link between Madeleine McCann and the Epstein network. The biggest problem with the theory lies in simple logistics. Journalists and investigators have pointed out that Ghislaine Maxwell's documented movements reportedly place her in New York around the time of Madeleine's disappearance, making a secret trip to Europe seem improbable. So where did the Maxwell connection truly come from? It was largely fueled by online communities comparing old, low-quality suspect sketches to photos of Maxwell. The witness statement from the Epstein files then acted as a powerful, seemingly official confirmation of this pre-existing theory. It is important to remember the context of that statement. It was made years after a fleeting memory, eyewitness testimony which is notoriously unreliable. It could simply be a tragic case of mistaken identity. Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year prison sentence for her role in facilitating horrific child sex trafficking crimes. Her guilt in those crimes is not in question. However, there is no credible official evidence linking her or Epstein to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. At this moment, the connection exists only within an unverified tip and the explosive world of online speculation.
The Epstein-Maxwell theory, as shocking as it is just one more thread in a dense web of speculation that has surrounded this case for almost 2 decades. To truly understand its place, you have to see it alongside the other major theories. The primary and most officially recognized theory is the abduction by a predator, with Christian Brueckner as the prime suspect. This is supported by tangible, albeit circumstantial, evidence. He was a known sex offender living in the area, and his phone pinged near the scene of the crime. For German and British investigators, this remains the most promising line of inquiry. Then there is the theory that refuses to die, the idea of parental involvement or an accidental death and cover-up. This theory, born from the early work of the Portuguese police, has been almost entirely rejected by official investigators since 2008, but persists in the public consciousness. Beyond those two dominant theories lies a universe of others. Some believe it was a botched burglary. Others speculate about a sophisticated pedophile ring that targeted Madeleine. Over the years, there have been thousands of unverified sightings, each sparking a brief flare of hope before being extinguished. And now, into this mix, we inject the Epstein theory. It is, by far, the most sensational, connecting Madeleine's disappearance to a global network of power and darkness.
But as it stands, it is also the least substantiated by any concrete proof.
So what are we to make of all this? Is the mention of Madeleine McCann's name in the Epstein files a credible lead that was tragically overlooked? Or is it just another conspiracy theory in a case that has been a magnet for them? The heartbreaking reality is we still don't know what happened to Madeleine McCann. After all these years, countless investigations, and millions of dollars spent, she is still missing. The mention of her in these court documents has provided a shocking new chapter to the story, but it has not provided a conclusion. The only thing that is certain is that a little girl went missing from her bed, and her family is still waiting for an answer. This investigation remains open. If you have any credible information about the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, you are urged to contact Operation Grange at Scotland Yard or visit the official website to find her, findmadeleine.com. Now, I want to turn the question over to you. Having heard the details of the disappearance, the case against the prime suspect, and this explosive but unverified information from online theories, what are your thoughts on the state of this enduring mystery? Let me know, respectfully, in the comments below.